Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2023 Chevy Trailblazer RS, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit for vehicles with LED taillights. But before we do that, let's take a minute, check these out, and make sure they're going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I figured it'd be a good idea to touch base on the main parts that we're going to need to flat tow our Chevy down the road in the first place. And usually we like to be hooked up to the motorhome and really give you a good visual, but thunderstorming outside today, so bear with us. But there's going to be 5 main parts. First one is your base plate, all right, and that's going to give us a attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. So the tow bar will plug into the ends here, and that'll be the actual link that connects the front of your Chevy to the back of your motorhome. The third thing that you're going to need is tow bar wiring, and you're going to have a cable that'll plug into the front of your Chevy and go to the back of your motorhome. That's going to transfer all the lighting functions from the back of your RV to the back of your Trailblazer. The fourth main part will be safety cables, and so those are going to attach to the base plate and then attach to your motorhome's hitch. And in the event of an unlikely disconnect, they're going to keep everything paired together. And last but not least, the fifth main part for the Chevy will be a supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your Chevy whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, helping to bring you to a more complete and controlled stop. The signals that are going to be able to be sent back here, you'll have your left turn signal, your right turn signal, your tail lights, as well as your brake lights. So you have all your bases covered there. And when it comes to tow bar wiring, the Roadmaster diode kit is what I recommend 99% of the time. They're super reliable, and they're super easy to hook up whenever you are ready to flat tow. You know, you'll just plug a cable into the front of your car and to the back of your motorhome. So really nothing to it there as far as that goes. And in my opinion, you know, you're not gonna even know they're installed on the vehicle once you have them in place. And that beats, say, magnetic lighting, for example, which are lights that stick to the side of the vehicle, which just might even be aluminum. I don't know if they'd even work or not, but with those, you have to run a cable up every time you want to flat tow, take it all back apart, and then store these lights in big bundle of wiring. So this always stays with the vehicle, really streamlines it, and makes it easy on you. Now, with that said, these are designed to work with vehicles that have LED taillights. So our RS model does. I believe maybe 1 or 2 of the other models, some models have LEDs as well. So definitely check that. If you have a standard incandescent style bulb, there's another smart diode kit available that will work with those particular taillights. So if you verified that your vehicle has those LEDs and this kit's going to work for you, to go from there, there's going to be 2 types of kits to pick from. One of them is what I call kind of the bare bones. You get your diodes, your wiring, and just some ins and outs. It's not going to come with your 6-way round connector plug or a cable. And so that's the kit that we use today, and that's because our neighbor used the Roadmaster Nighthawk tow bar, which comes included with a cable and a plug. So no reason to get the other kit and kind of have parts you don't really need necessarily. So if this is a style of tow bar that you're going to be using, or you know already have your 6-way and the cable, great. This will be the kit for you. If not, there's another kit that comes with the diodes, the wiring, the ins and outs, but it's going to come with a coiled cable like this one here. It'll have a 7-way round for the motorhome and a 6-way round for the vehicle side. And this kit will also come with the connector that you need up front here. So a couple of choices, and depending on what tow bar you go with or parts that you may already have, there's definitely going to be a solution for you. Other than that, at the end of the day, this is going to be a great option as far as tow bar wiring is concerned. You know, it's reliable and easy to hook up, so really can't ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, it's really not bad. Not complicated per se, but it is time consuming just having to route wires from the front all the way to the back of the tail lights and things like that. So stay focused, take your time, and you should be in pretty good shape. With that said though, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. To begin your installation for your diodes, go ahead, pop your hood, and we have our fascia removed because we're doing this at the same time that we're doing our base plate, which is what I recommend because you have a lot more room to work, but can be done with it on if need be. But first thing you want to do, so you have your big bundle of wire, take one end of it, drop it straight down. It's going to come out in this area, and then we're just going to loosely kind of route it over to where our bracket is there. So we have our end there. Take the rubber dust boot, slide that over, and we'll just kind of push it out of the way for now. Actually, I'll do this, make it easier to kind of work here. But you're going to separate the strands of wire, so just carefully kind of cut in between them. And then peel them apart, I don't know, a few inches back there. And then what I like to do, just in case if we nicked one of the wires or something, we were separating them, cut off maybe a 1/2 inch. And give us a fresh start there. And then we can strip each end of the insulation back a little bit. About like that's all we need. Give that wire a twist and do the same thing for our 3 remaining ends. This is what the connector plug is going to look like once you have all the wires hooked up. And I want to mention too, now would be a great time to install a battery charge line kit if you're going to run one of those, and that's because it ties into the back side of our connector plug here. So while this is apart, that's exactly what I'm going to do, and then we can continue on from there. With everything hooked up here now, you can take your dust cover, put that over it. What I usually do is come back with some silicone and fill all this in to help prevent corrosion, but I wait until we verify everything's working, because if we have to come back in here, I don't want to deal with a huge mess. So this is temporary. And get that covered up, and then I will mount this up to our base plate here. So with our diodes, you know, we have originally started with our wiring in the engine compartment, and that's where we're at now. And so we're going to actually ground our white wire. Over here on the driver's side, there's a post here that should work out real well. I'm going to remove this nut using a 10mm. Out of the way, and then you can cut our white wire to length here. And so with this, just like we did at the front, you want to very carefully cut just that white wire in half. And I'll usually cut it a little long too, because usually what ends up happening is you kind of tear up part of it from not trying to cut into the rest of the harness. So get that pulled back, and then strip the insulation back. Give that wire a twist, and this is how we're going to make all of our connections, whether it be a ring terminal or spade terminal or what have you. So that'll slide over the bare end of the wire, crimp it down. Got that crimped on there. We'll slide over that stud, reinstall that nut. Then what you can do with the rest of the white wire that goes to nothing, you know, you can just peel that off completely from the rest of the harness. It'll make the harness a little bit easier to route towards the back. And you want to hold on to this wire too, because chances are pretty good we're going to use it as a jumper to get us from the driver's side to the passenger side. I was able to continue to route our wiring towards the back of the vehicle, and essentially I just ran it through here and dropped it straight down to the underside. And when you're routing wiring, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts, especially in this area. There's just a lot of stuff going on here. So moving on to the back of our vehicle, while we're still up top, there's something we can do to make getting our wiring easier up here once we have it routed. So we're going to take our taillights out, and to do that, there's these two little caps. You can just take a little screwdriver, pop them open, and behind them you're going to have a T15 Torx bit screw. You'll pull both of those out. Then we'll actually get the light removed. So these can be pretty tight. I'm just kind of working it side to side a little bit and pulling back on it. And if you need to, you can always take kind of the palm of your hand and push on the side of it. That seems to help get it removed. And then we're just going to disconnect it here. So a little wire keeper there, you can pop it out of there. This is a quarter turn bulb. Quarter turn that. And that actually has a really small connection inside of there. Push down on that tab. You can set our light off to the side and do the same thing to get the passenger side one removed. Now you can grab a pull wire. I just have a piece of tubing. You can also use a thick piece of wire or take a metal coat hanger and straighten it out. And I'm just going to drop it down to the bottom side of our vehicle. And what this is going to do, once we have our wiring routed back here, we could tape our wire to this and then pull it up on it and it'll come right into position. So do it to the passenger side as well, and everything will be ready for us when we're underneath. Underneath the front of our vehicle, this is where our wiring dropped down from the engine compartment. And essentially I'm just following our brake lines here. So I use some zip ties every now and again to keep it secure. Again, just watch for moving and hot parts. But then it's going to kind of start to loop this way. Kind of go up through that opening there. And then once we get to about this area, we got a few things going on here that we need to take care of. So what I did was separate all three of the wires. So I made, the green, the yellow, and the brown individual. And then the brown wire, I actually cut that and stripped the ends back. So this end here, what you're going to do, if you remember that piece of white wire that we saved, you can take that and twist some two ends together. Try to get them nice and tight. And then take a butt connector, put it over both ends, and crimp it down. And so the kit will come with a butt connector. I like to use these heat shrink ones because the ends will seal up. Just help protect against corrosion a little bit better, so you can always upgrade if you want. Pick them up from here. Then so the other end of the brown wire. All right, so this is the other side that we cut. I stripped it back and then kind of folded the wire over on half to make it thicker. give it a better bite into the butt connector. We'll feed that in, get it crimped, and then I'll come back with my heat gun and seal up the ends. So I finished up routing our wires, and so our yellow and brown wire will stay on the driver's side, just run through there. And I did take some wire loom and just put it on the wires here, just because there's kind of some sharp edges, rather be safe than sorry, but it's going to you know, drop down. And then I taped it to our fish wire that we dropped down here earlier. And so this one's all set up. We can do the passenger side now. So our green and white wire, that just runs along through here in the center of our vehicle. I have it kind of starting to come around through there. And essentially the same exact setup. You know, I put some wire loom on it, routed it up through there, and taped it to our fish wire. Back up top now, grab your fish wire, pull that right up into position here. And what I'll do now is test our factory wiring. That way we can figure out what wire we're going to need to tie into. So I got our factory wires tested, and we're going to be working with the red one. That's the brake light signal. And these were originally taped up, had some coating on them. You know, you can get rid of that, cut that out of the way so you got room to work. But what you're going to do is cut that red wire in half, and then strip back the insulation on both ends. Crimp on one of these red spade terminals here. Once you get this one completed, your other wires, what I did was just kind of zip tied it up here and then cut them to length. You know, you want to leave some wiring to give you a little room to work, but I stripped them back, and these are also going to receive the red terminals. And grab our diode now, and where it says car out, you want to plug in the factory wire into it, and you want to use the one that's closest to, you know, the actual taillight plug. And so then the other end of our red wire will go to car in, and then our new wires, you'll have RV tail end, so the new brown wire will go onto that terminal, and then RV break-in, you're going to use the new yellow wire to plug into that. In the kit, they are going to give you a couple of pieces of white wire, maybe a foot long. That's going to be our ground. So on one end, crimp on a ring terminal, one of the small ring terminals, and use the provided screw to secure it to metal portion of our vehicle. The other end, just crimp on a terminal like we did for all the others, and that is going to plug into the ground post there on our diode. So what I've done now is just kind of use some tape and some zip ties, kind of bundle everything up, and then where the diodes actually, or I'm sorry, the terminals actually plug into the diodes, I just took some silicone, applied it on there just to help keep them in place, keep moisture from getting in and things like that. So while this is drying, we'll go over to the passenger side and get that one completed. On the passenger side, I got this one done, and it's essentially the same exact setup. All right, so our factory red wire, that's the one you're going to use. That goes into car out. Other side of the red goes in the car in. The white wire, the new one that we ran up here, that goes into RV tail. Our new green wire goes into RV brake, and then of course you have your ground, just like the other side. So with this one wrapped up, I'll put our silicone on it, and we can get our tail lights back in. So with both sides done now, we'll go ahead, plug our lights back in, and reinstall them the opposite way that we removed them. With everything hooked up, we can test it now to make sure it's working. So I have a test box here to run through our signals. For those of you at home, you can use your motorhome, but keep in mind if your motorhome has any issues with it, it might mislead you into thinking it's something you did on the vehicle side. But that said, let's check everything out. We'll go ahead and turn on our taillights. Try our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2023 Chevrolet Trailblazer.